Some games take a little longer to get going, or they take a while to really get their hooks into you. But sometimes sticking with them can lead to the best case scenario. You've found your new favorite game. Anyway, here's my personal list of games I almost dropped. Starting off with number 18, Rimworld is considered one of the greatest colony sims or base building simulations out there. I mean, if you're into management style games, it's very easy to lose hours of your life here. You can come up with insane, creative, weird stories and it's like a big experimentation simulator. Now me on the other hand, I'm not the biggest sim guy. I'm more of a dumb brute force action guy. So playing a game like Rimworld for the first time was a little bit daunting. It was overwhelming for me. Now, I consider myself just a game nerd who at least tries every type of game, so I tried Rimworld and I pretty quickly dropped off. But I came back and I came back over and over and over again. It's hard to put my finger on what got me to stick with it, but throughout those restarts, slowly but surely things made sense in the game. The UI was no longer overwhelming. I was experimenting more with making dumb little setups and contraptions, and once it really clicked, it really clicked. Now I have a thriving colony. I finally can survive some of the more harsher biomes, and I'm coming up with just story and treatment and just situations to put my people into that just constantly populate in my head. After that, I started loving this game, and I can guarantee that if you enjoyed playing colony sim games, then Rimworld is definitely a must play. And number 17, it's something that may surprise some of you, or maybe some of you are in the same boat, but that's Outer Wilds. It's one of those games that people consider just a lot of people's favorite games. It's one of those, you know? Once you talk to somebody that's played Outer Wilds, they're obsessed with it, and they will never stop talking about it. And fortunately, I am now one of those people, but for a while, I just couldn't get into it. Now, I'm willing to admit, I'm not the biggest puzzle adventure guy. I'm not the guy that played a lot of old school style adventure games. But now, once I am a little bit older, I am willing to be patient and let games do their thing. And thankfully I did with Outer Wilds, because what you get at the end is just this deeply satisfying experience of exploration, discovery, and figuring things out in really your own unique order. So initially I just kind of bounced off this game because the space flying wasn't really my thing. There wasn't much going on this little planet, but that turned out to be what the game was all about. It's about zooming out, slowing down, and looking at the bigger picture. And once you start connecting these dots and getting these eureka moments, it's like unrivaled. It's one of the best experiences you can have in games. So I just had to embrace what it was going for, and now I'm glad I did. Next over at number 16, Days Gone. This has a bit of a slow start. Now mind you, it is a purposeful slow start. They're almost trying to show not tell. They really want you to discourage. They really want you to feel how weak you are in really the beginning of the game. You got nothing but your bike. The first time you encounter a horde, you're really gonna feel that. You're gonna run with your tail between your legs. But it's one of those games that once you power through the beginning parts, the early game stuff, it does start to open up. It gets a little bit more fun. And once you get more into the mid and end game, you start to feel like a complete powerhouse that can tackle any horde, and motorcycle upgrades really go a long way to make you feel like a badass traversal man making your way around this world. It's really, really fun to gun it around as fast as you can to get from one side of the map to another. There's also some stuff where the story starts to develop and get a little bit more interesting. Although it is polarizing, some people say it's not very good, some people think it's incredible. It kind of depends on your key mileage. Me, personally, I really like the second half of the game. I liked how the story progressed. I liked some of the audacious, bold things it did. It's an interesting one, and while this game launched a little funky, they did patch it up and get rid of a lot of the bugginess and jankiness, making it better now as it stands. So if you play it now, you might have a little bit more luck than maybe if you did back at launch. Coming in next at number 15, we have Hollow Knight. Now this is more of a me thing. Maybe I'm just stupid. That's sometimes how I feel about stuff, but this is just like Dark Souls. For me, I'm a huge Metroidvania fan. I love those types of games, but for some reason, Hollow Knight didn't click right away. It's like just the way my brain works, really. Just there were certain systems and mechanics that I just didn't realize. Now this game does a really good job, I will say, way better than something like Dark Souls, of really showing and explaining the basics. but I just never really had the bumbling, stumbling around the beginning area, the forgotten crossroads in Hollow Knights, where I wasn't sure if I was playing the game the right way. I wasn't sure if I understood like the game loop, the really core hook. Of course, after a little bit longer time and a bit of experimentation and a bit of just learning, it really clicked. And I'm glad it did, because what a game. I just love exploring this world. I love the combat. I love get knocked back to the ledge, it up forever. Classic Metrovania progression. Wheelhouse Contract nails it really just perfectly, the core fundamentals, everything from sidestepping, about hardcore bosses, to the grimy, dirty atmosphere of the world. Like, just all of it. And just once I started to finally figure out how to use this nail and figure everything out, and you just start slashing and mastering this world, everything did start to finally feel perfect. But there's a little bit of a struggle at first. Now, maybe this is just me, but I will say, if you gave Hollow Knight a try and gave up for it pretty quickly, give it another go, because the sequel of this game is just around the corner. Up next, it's Crusader Kings 2. Now, maybe I don't come across as this, but I am absolutely a massive, big, fat fan of Crusader Kings 2. It's one of my favorite games, but I will say a lot of those early Paradox games struggled to feel accessible, which is exactly why Victoria 3 is more accessible now. And people criticize it for feeling not as hardcore as some of the previous games, because those previous games were hardcore. They were kind of impenetrable, kind of hard to jump into them. And sometimes that's what the fans love. And other people from the outside, looking in, like me maybe, just don't jump into it. But with Crusader Kings 2, one that looked fun enough for me to try, I stuck with it, and I'm glad I did. This game is absolutely awesome, and not in like the usual way you expect these types of games to be. This is a world-spanning game, lots of maps, lots of little tiny menus and things, but for me, just sound like a total nerd here, it's the story. This Dynasty simulator essentially just gives you scenario after scenario, meat within the mechanics of how you manage things. It's equal parts action, bloodthirsty, evolving game / soap opera. As you make decisions and form liaisons, stab people in the back, and form war plans. It's just absolutely a blast once you get rolling here. And now Crusader Kings 2 has a lot of great stuff. It's definitely worth it, but if you want to get into the most recent release, Crusader Kings 3, they do a pretty good job of making this complex system and these complex games really approachable and easier to jump into. So highly recommend to anybody on the fence about these types of games.
That hunk of junk is a heavy weapons platform. If we rush in, we die.
Is that right?
Need to hit it with magic.
Next, over at number 13, Final Fantasy VII Remake. This one might get me hung, this one might get me crucified, but what can I say here? So I'm not the biggest Final Fantasy guy, but in my heart, I'll always love the PlayStation 1 era Final Fantasy games. Even if I don't love every aspect of them, I love the vibes, I love the look, I love the story, so I was definitely very excited about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Because I still do also just really like Sephiroth and all that stupid stuff. But the remake, I don't know if it was me crazy or what, but it just took me a little bit of time to stick with it. It is really that original game, technically stretched out over a full-fledged AAA game, so maybe that's what made it feel like it was slow going at first, but I dropped off of it maybe after the first 2 missions or so. The first time, I came back 6 months later, same thing. I came back maybe a year and a half later, like same type of thing. And then I jumped in again one day once I saw that they were pulling that free PSN game plug. So I was like, all right, shit, better knock this game out and try it again. And then, I don't know, maybe the stars were right, maybe the mood, maybe the weather was just right, maybe the temperature was perfect. But I finally fell in love and got through the game and absolutely appreciated how it's not only an incredible retelling of that original game, but it's more of like a sequel that changes and messes with what we already thought we know, while still just being absolutely gorgeous with excellent action combat and really great music. Now look, I gotta say, if you struggle to get through the first one, Part 2 absolutely nails it. Rebirth is just significantly better. Of course, you can play Rebirth without playing the first one, but I highly suggest that you play Final Fantasy VII Remake first before jumping to Rebirth. That way you can really understand what's going on around the world. Moving on to number 12, it's Cuphead. Cuphead is a tough-as-nails platformer inspired by classic run-and-gun games, while also having the most incredible, super cool 1930s style animation, music, art, and really everything. It's a really fun game that is incredibly rewarding once you start seeing like how it all works. As you memorize attack patterns, start figuring out puzzles, become absolutely killer with a parry, and just start dodging every single little pixel thrown at you. In the beginning of the game, it might not feel like you'll ever get there, but you'll eventually get there. If you put in the hours, you'll start to become an absolute killer with Cuphead. Now for me, this is more of an action gamer, slasher type guy. I initially had some trouble because just the platforming shooter stuff took a little bit more time for me, but I loved everything else about this game, so it really kept me going. Unlike some of the other games on this list that are like bigger games, where you're kind of wandering around not really knowing if you're playing the game right, here with Cuphead, you at least know exactly what you have to do. It's just a matter of making your hands do it and also just knowing the best details possible. Now, I did eventually get through it. Over time, it still took me a lot, but I am working on the DLC, and let me tell you, they're still kicking my ass. Next, over at number 11, we have Grime. Grime is an awesome Metroidvania game if you played every other one and you still want more. This one came out a couple of years ago and it is different and unique, but still inspired by other Metroidvanias that you might really dig it if you've exhausted everything. Now, initially though, it's one of those games where you can feel a little funky. Just from a minute one, there's not a whole lot of exploration and story and stuff in the beginning, but it's trotted along and it's mixed in a very unique way, especially as you explore more of this really weird, dirty, gritty world. The boss fights are awesome, the combat is fun and crunchy, and the upgrades really feel good. So, I actually dropped this game about 15 hours in, but decided to come back, and I'm absolutely glad I did, because it's at least worth experiencing, and also if you're addicted to Metroidvania, these types of games. This one will definitely give you a fix, but a slightly different one. The art style is really different. It's got an awesome soundtrack. It's also really challenging. And we've seen a couple of varying takes on these Metroidvania style games like this. But yeah, with Grime, if you're looking for a really just grimy Metroidvania, look no further than this one. Next on the list, at number 10, I have a confession to make, and please don't kill me for this one. But I'd be lying if I didn't include it, The Witcher 3. Now let's be clear, it's an all-time classic, everybody loves it, hell, everybody plays it. Did you know statistically 4 out of 5 gamers living in the United States have booted up Witcher 3? Nah, I'm just kidding, I made that up, but everybody has played this game, and so did I at launch. I booted it up, I created an old man Geralt, I started exploring around, I did a couple of the quests. But I kind of fell off it, and then a little bit later I came back. But then got distracted by another game. I think it might have been Batman Arkham Knight. 2015, what a year for games, am I right? Anyway, I eventually jumped back in and sat and actually properly dedicated myself to just making my way through the game, going at my own pace, but really getting through it. And does the game deliver? Geralt's story is just so magnetic. The open world is a blast to explore, but also the story is what keeps you going. It's one of those perfect games in terms of narrative, gameplay, and tech, and it's really easy to jump into. Even if you aren't already familiar with the Witcher books, the first 2 games, or really anything, or even the Netflix series. But I got to say, maybe I struggled a little bit at first because I did want more Witcher vibes. More gritty Witcher 1 or Witcher 2 type of vibes, a little bit more industrial age stuff. But of course, I eventually learned The Witcher 3 is a point on the timeline where not everything is totally cracked yet. So it does still have plenty of Witcher vibes. Yes, White Orchard is a little more idyllic, but things change, you'll eventually see. And yeah, now I'm a Witcher 3 addict, and as you can see, I can't stop myself recommending this game to anyone. Next, at number 9, is Control. Now, if you've been a lurker on this channel, you've probably seen Control pop up here and there, and our reasoning is really because it's just one of those experimental, fun, interesting, atmospheric experiences where it has a specific vibe. A specific look that it's going for a mood, and it goes for it pretty hardcore. It's very unique, it's very distinct, and you'll quickly find that when you boot up the game. But the actual gameplay itself, the mechanics, the meat of the game, takes a bit longer to get going, really, once all the psychic abilities start finally coming together where your brain can figure it all out. A specific look that it's going for a mood, and it goes for it pretty hardcore. It's very unique, it's very distinct, and you'll quickly find that when you boot up the game. But the actual gameplay itself, the mechanics, the meat of the game, takes a bit longer to get going, really, once all the psychic abilities start finally coming together where your brain can figure it all out. Once you've finally gotten good with all the levitating and all the throwing, that's when the game just starts to feel really, really good. But admittedly, it can take a little bit of time to get there. Fortunately, the story is weird and crazy enough to keep you going along, and you'll be glad it did, because once more abilities start to roll in, the game is an absolute blast. Now, if you're going to try it, I definitely suggest you do. The end is incredible, it's totally worth it. It is right on paper, but just know the first hour or so of this game, maybe 2 hours, can feel a little slower.
An error has been detected on line 10A. All our clamps are jammed. I need 2 workers to climb up and secure the cables.
Next, at number 8, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I am a big old From Software, Dark Souls, Elden Ring fanboy. The challenge, the gameplay, the combat sophistication, all of it. So you would think I'd be a huge fan of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, because it kind of borrows some of those things and feels inspired, that type of design. But playing Fallen Order back in the day, it just didn't do the thing that the thing did, you know what I mean? Like, it just didn't necessarily scratch the itch for me. It also kind of had a bit of a slow start as you're starting to figure out how the game world works. Getting used to Cal Kestis' moves and unlocking more of his abilities as you go along, you end up becoming an absolute beast, but it takes some time to get there. And at the same time, when this game originally launched, there were some finicky issues. It was a little clunky in some spots, some animations were weird, like it just was a little bit of a weird package to me at first, so I just didn't play it, but I did eventually come back years later, and I played the absolute hell out of it. My second time through, I realized the game is still really, really great. It's Star Wars vibes, the action is incredible, the story's good, and once everything starts clicking, the level design is excellent. It's definitely worth your time, because all my gripes, a lot of them at least, were fixed by the release of the sequel, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. But if you haven't played Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order because the sequel is better, I'd still say play the first game, but the second game is an all-time classic. Just keep your time baseline low and go through it fast. Next, over at number 7, it's Doom Eternal. Doom 2016 I consider an all-time classic. I love it. I still play this game. So naturally I was very, very excited for Doom Eternal. But once I booted this thing up, now again, I'm speaking for me personally here. I don't know about you guys, but Doom Eternal at first just felt slightly off. Now, I realize why I felt that, and I realized what we were complaining about. It's different. And we also were just not playing it the way we want, but they wanted us to specifically play Doom Eternal. Doom 2016 is fast as hell and brutal, but Doom Eternal cranks things to a whole another level, and you basically need to play into that. You need to lean into Doom Eternal's bullshit. There's a lot more weapon switches, there's a lot more mechanic things with specific enemy takedowns, and maybe it was the pacing of the game, or maybe it was a little fatigue, of course. Playing Doom Eternal immediately after playing hours and hours of Doom 2016. But something with the rhythm was a little bit off for me initially, and I did drop the game, but to come back later and finally figure everything out a little bit more, absorb all the systems, and now, you know, revel in all of the crazy fun, love it, and also love Doomslayer's dumb little suit they gave him in Doom Eternal. But look, if you're like me, and if this one didn't click with you right away, definitely give another go, because it's definitely one of the better shooters out there, especially in recent memory.
I don't break that easy. Name notwithstanding.
You saw that asshole too, right?
Now, down at number 6, we have Death Stranding. Now, if you've been watching these videos for a while, you know I love saying the word Death Stranding, because it probably is one of the goofier, cool, interesting, and weird Hideo Kojima experiences. It's very weird, it comes out of the gate weird. It asks a lot of you, the player, to just deal with. And sometimes it can come off as a little pretentious, if I'm being honest. I'm just talking about the story here. But if you've played the first few hours of Death Stranding, you'll know you're just gonna be like, what the hell is this? I don't know if I like this. What is this story? What is this stupid stuff with the entities? What is all the stuff about America? It's really throwing a whole lot of really intriguing thematic elements at you while also putting you in the shoes of a guy who just walks around a big, open, barren world. Just walking, that's the gameplay loop at its core. Now, it's a gigantic experiment on third-person open-world traversal. There are a lot of reasons why you'd look at this game and drop it. It is something else, but I'm so glad I stuck with it. The story, once it starts to really develop, you get introduced to more cutscenes like Guillermo del Toro's character. It is so worth it. It's one of Kojima's best stories, and that's saying a lot. The gameplay itself really reveals what it is. That experimentation, it's really trying to make a game mostly about figuring out how to get from point A to point B and making that process as fun and interesting as possible. It is an interesting game that some people say forces you to build the fun, but I think it just gives you all the tools to build the fun yourself because that is fun. Coming in next, it's NieR Automata. Talk about a game that I almost dropped. I'm speaking from personal experience. I love NieR. I'm a huge NieR fan, and I still almost dropped this one because it's a whole lot of everything. It's a beautifully strange and abstract experience, but if you like that type of stuff, it really delivers. Everything about this game is A+, all-time favorite for me, and these types of games do often come out swinging. It starts off a little bit strange if I'm being honest. And I didn't initially get into the story or anything until like around the second boss. That's when I really was starting to feel the vibes. Now there's a whole lot of game right at the start, and just that first initial stage, it's a decent chunk of time. And if you die, you didn't save actually. So you kind of got to do the whole thing over again. I know a lot of people that got to that first boss and died. And we're like, I'm not doing this over, I'm dropping it again. Fortunately, I never personally had that problem, but I do know tons of people that jumped into the game, played it for like an hour, died, or got bored and stopped. But if those people had stuck just even a little bit further, they will surely be hooked later. Now, I say this about this game all the time. If you don't have the patience to play through it, just watch a Let's Play, or at least maybe like a highlight reel of all the story stuff that goes down. Because this game is really a masterpiece in storytelling, in my opinion, and it's worth sticking with and seeing the experience. Next on the list, at number 4, Kingdom Come Deliverance. The first time I booted up this game, I dropped it super almost instantly. It came off as like way too hardcore role-playing. Slow and grindy, it was also much buggier at launch than it is now. So that did not help, but coming back months later, things suddenly started to click. This hyper-realistic medieval pseudo-open-world role-playing game is strange but awesome once you finally give in. The world is incredibly detailed and unique, and the attention to detail and role-playing elements makes it absolutely worth seeing through. But then on the flip side, it's got this like hardcore stuff with the weapon-based combat, and it takes a while to get used to. I mean, you're Henry. You're not a hero. You're not a super powerful guy with a big sword. You're some scrub, and it can be discouraging, but it is worth sticking through because how the game eventually progresses and just for the built world itself. Now, this is definitely a love-hate game type of thing. Some people love it, some people absolutely hate it, and I totally get both sides, but if you're the type of person that likes ultra-hardcore, realistic games, then Kingdom Come Deliverance will totally scratch that itch of yours. And hey, there's already a sequel to this game continuing Henry's journey. So yeah, definitely don't give up on it.
Is that what I think it is? Look at this. I don't believe it, but I actually caught one.
Now down to number 3, it's The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, I was excited as anybody else about this game, of course, but I have a lot of mixed feelings on it. Do I have fun with it? Yes. Do I think in some ways it's like the greatest game of all time? Yes. But in some ways, it is not really for me. Is it like my favorite Zelda game? No, I could be an internet weirdo about this forever until the day I die. But I do still really like this game, and I almost didn't. Because when I first booted it up, I was kind of like, what's the hype about? It feels boring, it feels empty at first. But truthfully, giving it more time and allowing the game to breathe, stretch its legs a little bit, I finally did appreciate what was so special here. This is open world design at its absolute best, and it's worth kind of dropping your cynicism and maybe jumping into, because it's not slow necessarily, but it can take a bit longer to just get used to the mechanics, really see how big and expansive this world is, and really truly see what Breath of the Wild is trying to do. If you are hung up on it, I really suggest pushing the story. Try and make it to a divine beast or two, and then also at the same time just let yourself get lost in the world doing dumb stuff, because then that way you can finally connect, or it can finally click for you. Now, this is a pretty popular game, so I'm sure for most of you guys, it instantly clicked. But there are a lot of people out there, including me, that really didn't like Breath of the Wild at first. And then once they forced themselves to play more, they started loving it. The same can be said for the sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, as well, because that game requires a lot of patience and planning, just like Breath of the Wild. Next on the list, down to number 2, this is a really dangerous one for me to admit, but I like being honest here. So, Sekiro took me a really long time to get through the tutorial area. Keep in mind, I'm a gigantic From Software fan, and I can't get enough of these games. Look, I love From Software games like Elden Ring and Dark Souls, But with Sekiro, it struggled with me a little bit. With the Souls games, it depends on the player, how you work. You can dance around and avoid a lot of the game's tougher challenges with summons, with leveling up, basically just with grinding, but that's not really how Sekiro works. There are no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no way of getting around or making the game easier for you. You gotta play the game how it was intended to be played, and really did I struggle. It was the parry specifically, to be honest, that took me a lot of time to get used to. I persevered because I am just a FromSoft sucker, and I'm glad I did, because once you start getting into the rhythm of combat, once you start mastering these animations and clanging swords together, it feels amazing. There really is no other sense of satisfaction in games quite like Sekiro. The combat in that game is absolutely God, and the stuff, the choreography and the combat scenarios they throw at you just feel like a total shinobi fight like no other. This game is really incredible, but you need to get used to it. And while I struggled with pairing with Sekiro, believe it or not, I learned a lot of things from that game that actually helped me in other games.
How come every time I get in trouble, I'm called a fool and an idiot? But when you get in trouble, oh, it's just one of them things.
It's a good point, Arthur.
Now down at number 1, Red Dead Redemption 2. So yes, in my opinion, it's an all-time classic masterpiece of a video game. Perfect narrative pacing, perfect story, lots of fun open world side activities. A world to really marvel at now, even like years after the game's 2018 release. It's incredible, but I really wish Chapter 1 everything was skippable. Essentially, the whole snowy intro drags on and seems even physically slower because you're walking through the snow and you're on horseback going slow. It's trying to introduce you to Red Dead Redemption 2's methodical, realism-paced world. But it sometimes does that stuff too good and comes off as just clunky for some players. I've spoken to many people that attempted Red Dead Redemption 2 and dropped it after Chapter 1, and I always tell them the same thing, that they're missing out. The game delivers to you in spades once Arthur Morgan is let loose with the gang in the Old West. And you can do whatever you want. Rob, steal, explore. It opens up and it really lets you see the game's mains, core thread, the story, everything. But man, that opening is really, really slow, and unfortunately you can't skip it. And I get what this game is going for. I get it more because I played it and beat it and know what it was doing, but it's a tough first hurdle. Fortunately, I did get over it, and I'm a better person for it. So if you tried this game and gave up on it, I encourage you to give it another shot and experience the emotional, masterfully told story it has to offer.